is to help others to achieve their own greatness potential. And so when I'm offering classes like this, it's because I want to contribute some way to you. Here's the thing that I'm not going to talk about today, and that is investing in real estate. Are you guys okay with that? Are we pretty much clear on maybe the number one thing that we all should be doing, especially in the real estate industry, is investing in real estate, right? You can see all these numbers up here on the board and all that. We'll tell you about another class that's coming up that's taught by an actual expert in our office at the end here. But today I want to talk to you about all of the things that I wished I would have known 15 years ago. Some of these things are probably things that some of you guys are doing, but some of these things are going to be brand new to you. I assure you, everything that I talk about on here was brand new to me. Nobody taught me. It means I had a CPA that I'm paying a bunch of money that didn't teach me anything that I really needed to know. Anybody been in a familiar situation? Okay, great. How many of you guys in the room currently have a financial advisor? A couple of you guys. How much have you actually learned from your financial advisor? Okay, my experience was not a lot, right? I went into my biannual meetings and they spoke this different language and it sounded complex and scary. And therefore I was just like, well, here, you do this, you know? And so I didn't learn anything necessarily from my financial advisor, which was a mistake. But what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna talk you through a lot of those things that I wished I would have known. And also, as we're going through, we've got plenty of time on this. I want you guys to feel like you can stop and ask questions. I talk fast. Sometimes I talk like I'm always in charge. I want you to interrupt me if you've got a good question, because this needs to be interactive for it to work for you. If you guys come out of this class today and you're able to implement even one thing, I assure you that it will make a difference in time. So let's get going on this thing. Maybe somehow Nate makes this stuff work, but I can't. Arrow. Yeah, even the keyboard is giving me grief. Try a mouse. There we go. And I can't go back. So let's do backspace now. Oh, not those arrow keys. Okay, cool. That's why we got tech support. Everybody give Audrey a round of applause. We are so happy to have you. We can carry on now. Okay, good. All right, so before I get started on this, I want to give you guys a disclaimer. Anybody listen to podcasts? Anybody listen to any like wealth building podcasts? Do you get the disclaimer at the beginning of the podcast that this is for entertainment purposes only? I am not a CPA, nor an attorney, nor a financial advisor. All right, is that clear? So this is for entertainment purposes only. Yay, it'll be much more fun that way. Okay, so I want to talk about a few different things, and I've got it kind of laid out there. I'm going to talk about LLCs filing a Subchapter S corporation versus a sole proprietor. I want to talk about pre-tax and post-tax brokerage accounts. I also want to talk about what I consider the best investment available in America, the trifecta, and that is an HSA. So we're going to talk about HSAs and actually how to use HSAs, because your health insurance provider is not going to teach you that either. We'll talk a little bit about automation. Some of you guys might know what that is. Some of you won't. Don't worry, you're going to learn what it is. I'll talk to you about a few different rules up there. The rule of 4%, the rule of 25, the rule of 72. These are all things that I learned that I wished I would have known 15 years ago. All right. We're going to talk about the difference between doing it yourself or getting a financial advisor. We'll talk about some tax strategies, you know, such as meeting with CPAs quarterly. Any of you guys in here not have a CPA? Okay, so we have a couple that don't have CPAs that are in here, and so yeah, we're searching. We are, even when you have one, you're searching for the next one, aren't you? Even if you have a CPA, you're searching for your next CPA, aren't you? That's what I found out about CPAs. We'll talk about high yield accounts as well. Anybody in here not heard of a high yield account? Hopefully somebody raises their hand, because this is like, okay, good, excellent. I believe she's lying. Real estate investing, I'm probably not going to spend a lot of time talking about that, but then I'm going to share my knowledge and resources, like kind of where I get my information for, and I go down the rabbit hole on things. And so I want to make sure that you guys have access to the same stuff I have access to. So here's the deal. You know, Utah is really famous for its pyramid sales things, right? Noni juice, Amway's, yeah, it doesn't matter what it is, right? I mean, sign up, whatever the product is, you're going to get rich, and it's going to be, right? In the real estate industry, I can't tell you how many times I've been approached by other realtors that have
all upstairs to like make it to have a. I probably said the same thing. If it's going to be like that. Well, you read that today. So we.
If the Julie Shaw is on, do you mind muting yourself, please? Thank you very much. We're kind of famous for the get rich quick here in Utah, and I've had a lot of real estate agents literally approach me with a straight face and try to get me on board with selling Fusion. That was the last one. Does anybody remember the Fusion grape energy drink craze? No? How memorable was that, right? It's like it swept the real estate industry by storm. Do you know why? Because it was during the Great Recession and those guys weren't selling any homes. So they're like, oh, this is the next greatest thing. Anyway, there's no such thing in my opinion as get rich quick. But what I want to let you know is that there's the ability to aggregate little things and then you add time. So you do enough of the right things over time. And the end result is you go up the hockey stick curve. Here's where a lot of people have problems. This is just the American way, right? Do you remember Amazon when it was just like an online shopping portal, right? Okay. And do you remember when Amazon started this thing called Amazon Prime, right? What did you get with Amazon Prime initially? Does anybody remember? Free shipping, right? And then Amazon Prime became free what kind of shipping? 2-day shipping. Remember that? All right. And now it's like it's quite easily same day shipping. Pretty soon it's going to be like Amazon yesterday. I mean, like literally all you have to do is think of it and it's going to like show up on your doorstep. That is the American way. Unfortunately, it is not the way for wealth, right? So the problem that we have in America is that success and failure look the same for an awful long time until you either go up the hockey stick curve or you go down the hockey stick curve. And so the things that we're going to talk about today are going to be little things that will make a difference if you do them long enough. All right. And if you don't do them, hopefully you don't end up on a red line. Or when I teach this again next year, because I usually will do this once a year when I update my numbers, just come back. We'll teach it again. And you'll take one more thing out of here that you can use to implement and make a difference. I wish Mark's partner was in here. She was in my class last year. She came to me at the end of the year when you're feeling very grateful and said, I'm feeling very grateful for you. I've implemented 3 things from the class that you taught at the beginning of the year. And she told me what a difference that's made. That's pretty impressive. So if you do 1, I'm happy. If you do 3, you can tell me about it. I'll be even happier. Okay, pushing arrows. Okay. All right, so first thing I want to talk to you about is S corporations versus like sole proprietors. And so how many of you guys in here right now have an LLC? Oh, good. A lot of you guys have an LLC. How many of you have an LLC that you've elected to file as a subchapter S corporation? That's great. Wow, man. You guys are getting smarter and smarter all the time, which is great. Now, I wanted to explain the difference for those of you guys who don't know, because here's the thing that my CPA didn't tell me is I'm writing out giant checks when I was first in the real estate business for taxes. My CPA didn't say, hey, have you thought about, filing your corporation as an S corp? That would have been really good advice, right? They didn't give the advice. I was running it as an LLC. I thought, hey, I'm good. I'm running it as a business, And then I learned about all this extra money that I was paying in taxes that I didn't have to pay. And all I had to do was file this, same corporation that I had, but just elect to file it as a subchapter S status. So I wanted to just kind of explain to you sort of the benefits of this, right? So as a sole proprietor, you're going to be paying your self-employment tax. It's about 15.3%. Obviously, that's subject to change year after year. I don't actually even know if it's 15.3% right now. I think it is, but it'll change every year, or at the very least, every time we have a new president, that number is probably going to change. All right. So if you make 100 grand, you're going to be paying 15,300 in self-employment tax. Okay. As an S corporation, let's say you aren't taking all of the money as a salary, so you're not subject to all of those same self-employment taxes. You're taking, generally speaking, as a rule of thumb, not law, half of the money you're going to take as salary, which is subject to the 15.3%, and the other half of the money you're going to take as a dividend, a draw, a profit. Those of you guys who are running S corporations in here, is that pretty much how you're doing it? You might wait till the end of the year and say, okay, I made X amount of dollars, and so I'm going to, half of that is going to be payroll, and I'm going to have to pay payroll taxes, all of them on it. The other half, I'm going to treat it as quote unquote profit, which is taxed at a different basis, right? So S corporation, you've got the 15.3% tax on that $50,000 salary. So that's $7,650, right? The income tax on both the S corporation and the sole proprietor are the same. An additional benefit of the Subchapter S election is that generally the IRS looks at Subchapter S's as being more sophisticated, which means you are less likely to get audited. And didn't Biden just like put a bunch of extra money at the IRS? So it's yet to be seen, but we'll see if the real estate industry becomes a target for those extra funds in the form of audits. So what I'm saying here is you're not going to pay the self-employment tax on the $50,000. That's going to save you the $7,650. But the ancillary benefit to this is something you guys should be aware of, and that is you're less likely to be audited as a Subchapter S corporation than you are as a sole proprietor. Okay, so let me move forward. Any questions on this? How many people did I confuse? Perfect. Yeah. Yeah, perfect. Yeah. So if, well, no, your LLC is an S corp now. Fine. Yeah, for logistical purposes, yeah, fine. Yeah, you're fine. You're in the right place. Now, how you run it, that could be a different thing. Again, we're all on, all searching out CPAs. I'm going to give all of you guys advice. Stop looking for the next best CPA. They don't exist. They're not out there. Not the ones that charge you, $50,000 to file your taxes, and not the ones that charge you $100. They literally are there filling out blanks on their software. That's what they do. Here's the information. You give them the information, which means you're in charge of what happens with the taxes. Now, what I've learned about CPAs, I create a Google Doc, and every year I have a new Google Doc that'll say tax questions 2024. I've already created it. I actually have my first question on there for next year. Okay. When I am listening to different podcasts or reading blogs and going through resources, sometimes I'll be like, dang, I need to see if that's something I can take advantage of, right? And I'll write that question down. That way, when I go and do my year-end tax planning with my account, I have the ability to ask those questions at that point in time. And that's what allows me to take advantage of things. My CPA isn't going to be like, hey, you know what you should do this year? You should go buy yourself a brand new truck, make sure it weighs over whatever, 7,000 pounds, and you can write that off against your taxes. Do you need a new truck? Yeah, I need a new truck. Great. Go and buy that this year before the end of the year, and you'll be able to write all of that off. Your CPA is not going to tell you any of that. You know, when you have a big tax bill and you say, what you ask your CPA, what should you do? And your CPA is going to tell you things like, well, did you have any like travel expenses or anything? Like, did you travel at all this year? No, man. I'm a real estate agent. I work 51 and a half weeks out. I travel, right? So they give you silly recommendations that you already know. Yeah, if I could write it off traveling, I would have done that already, which you probably would do, right? Okay. Yeah, you probably have rental properties and depreciate those. You've got some Airbnbs, so you've done some rapid depreciation. We're not talking specifically about those, but the podcasts that I'll share with you do talk specifically about those things. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's a good point, so I just did a big overgeneralization, right? But there are some differences where you're getting told no. If you get told no, then would it be not natural to follow up with, well, tell me why? So why do other people do that and I can't do it? And if they can't answer that question, that's a red flag. I would rather them say, I'm not sure, but I'll find out and I'll get back to you. I prefer that. All right, cool. So any other questions about the subchapter S versus the sole proprietor? Okay. I'm not a CPA. That's why I didn't go into this, because there are a lot of little things, but what you have is what you need. You're in good shape. All right. So do any of you in here have an LLC that has a partner on it, spouse, or something like that? Okay. If that LLC hasn't been elected to be filed as a subchapter S, it is treated the same as a sole proprietor, just so you're aware. So you don't have the same payroll versus profit benefits in that LLC. About what number does this make a difference? Around 80,000 to 100,000. So if you're making somewhere between 80 to 100,000 in a year, then it's probably smart. Well, it isn't probably, it is smart for you to get into a subchapter S. Make sense? All right, cool. All right, let me move past that. And now I want to talk a little bit about pre-tax accounts. So most of you guys have heard this saying, a dollar saved is a dollar earned, right? I have. I mean, wasn't it Benjamin Franklin that said that? I have no idea, but it seems like it's been around. It seems like everything, the apple a day keeps the doctor away. I mean, all of this stuff. I just read his biography, his autobiography, and it was like, wow, man, that's smart. Penny saved is a penny earned. Okay, so speaking of inflation, by the way, what was approximately what was our inflation through 2023? Does anybody know? Well, that would have been 2022, I think. Oh, so let's call it like 5 or 6%, because I think it was somewhere in that number. I don't know what it finished out the year at, but somewhere in that ballpark, right? So I want you to understand that inflation erodes the value of your dollar. All right. So if you don't put it somewhere where your dollar is making babies, you're losing opportunity. Secondly, what's your tax rate at? You start at what, 12%, and it jumps up to, I don't know, is it 20% or something like that? It goes up to 24% fairly quickly. I don't know all the tax brackets because those two always change. But most people that are in real estate are going to be somewhere between the 20 and 24% tax bracket. If you're doing like crazy well, like the guy that does our wealth building who's in the back of the class, you're going to be higher than that too. And you're going to have to start getting more sophisticated. But here's the deal. If I'm in a, say, 24% tax bracket, basically I have to make about $1.24. I'm just going to round it. It's not truly that number, but about $1.24 to save a dollar, don't I? $1.24 to save a dollar. Okay, so I want to tell you a way that the government is trying to give you some incentive to keep that money, invest it, and then retire on your own without having to be the burden of the federal government, which ultimately this is what it's all about. The federal government's going to have less of a burden if you've taken care of yourself. So they're going to incentivize you to do so up front. And one of the ways that they do that is through what's called a simplified employee pension. Is anybody in here run an SEP? It's a type of an IRA that's associated with your business. So Justin, you have an SEP? Okay, great. So one of the things I like about SEP is its high contribution limits for your business that you can put in. So what the government is saying is like, look, for 2024 limits, you can put up to $69,000 into an SEP, and that is a direct tax write-off, right? So that reduces your income by 69,000. Therefore, $1.24 saved or earned is $1.24 saved, right? Because we put the whole thing in there. We just got the federal government to sponsor it. Another way of looking at this is, hey, for every dollar I put into this, the government's giving me a quarter. Now, let's think about this with bigger numbers, right? For every $100,000 I put into this, the government's giving me 25 grand. Well, that means a lot, doesn't it? And so that is a huge upside. I really love SEP as a pre-tax account for businesses that are big. If you're making 250, 350, it's going to trump what you're able to put in using a solo 401k, which I'm going to talk to you guys about in a minute because all of you guys have access to it. In fact, I set up my second 401k in about 10 minutes today, and I'll talk to you about what I did. So upsides are you can put a lot of money in it, and it's up to 25% of your net income. So again, going back to the $100,000 figure, if you make 100,000, you can put up to 25,000 bucks into an SEP. If you made 200,000, you can put up to 50,000 into it. Again, all the way up to where you're at 69,000. That's for this year. If you're going to fund it for last year, the number was 66,000. So there is a downside to this. I discovered this after a few years of having my my first tenured assistant in real estate, and that is I was maxing out my SEP all the way because I was like, that's what you're supposed to do. Financial advisors like, you got to take advantage of this. I'm like, okay, you're the smart one in the family. I'll do what you say. And so I took advantage of it. Well, after I had Mike for a few years, guess what? I didn't realize that if I put 25% of my income in it, I also have to put 25% for each of my employee who's been with me 3 years or more. So that was a good bonus. She deserved it, And then I stopped doing it from that point forward because I'm like, I got to find different ways to grow this thing because I can't put 25% of your income and my income and still expect to expand a business, right? There are other options if you guys grow a bigger team on things that you can do. I'm not going to cover those things today because most people that are in this class today aren't running giant teams where you have big, lots and lots of employees, et cetera. All right. So there you go. SEP IRA. It is an IRA, but it is a company funded IRA, which means your Subchapter S or your LLC writes the check that funds the SEP, that self-employment pension plan. All right. It funds it. And the government says, great, you can just take that off of what you would have to pay in taxes. So if you made 100,000, you put 25,000 in it, the government's like, okay, you only made 75 grand this year. That's a good deal. It really is a good deal. As you're going to learn, time, right? We talked about time in the market. You're going to learn here before long what that kind of money, if you're doing it every year, even if you're only doing 1,000 or 5,000 a year, you're going to see what that'll do to you long term. So let me talk to you about a solo 401k. Anybody in here have any familiarity with the solo 401k? Nobody? Okay, you have some familiarity with it? Ah, man, all right, good. I'm glad because I always want to make sure even the people that know so many things, can get one thing out of this class that they might be able to do different. So solo 401k is supremely awesome. Like I said, I set one up in 10 minutes today, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a minute. But what I want to talk to you about initially are some of the upsides. So you have an upside. First of all, let me just put it this way. If you have an employee, you can't do a solo 401k. However, if your spouse is your employee, you can still do a solo 401k, not just for you, but also for your spouse. All right. So here's the deal. What are you doing? Are you shutting them out? Kicking them off? Mute them all. All right, good. Y'all are muted. Stay that way. So you can put 69,000 bucks in it. If you're over 50, which I did this for Lee yesterday, right? My mom, generally, you can do an additional $7,500 catch up on there. Did you know that? Isn't that cool? Right? Yeah, that's super rad. As the employee, essentially what you can do is you can contribute up to 23,000 or 100% of the compensation that you received, whichever is less. So as the employee, if you made, let's say, 10,000 bucks, you could, as the employee, put in 10,000, but hang tight because it'll get better than that. You have a question for me? Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, no, you're not. You wouldn't be treated as an employee or a spouse or a partner on an LLC, right? So no, you wouldn't be treated as an employer. So as the employer, you can make an additional profit sharing contribution up to 25% of your compensation. So here's the cool thing about this. I just want, a lot of people in real estate have a spouse, not everybody, but a lot of people might have a spouse who makes really great money. And maybe you're newer in the business, or you're just, it's kind of a side hack. So maybe you're only selling 5, 6, 7, 8 houses a year. So you're not making giant dollars, right? The nice thing about this is you can still put in 23,000 bucks for 2024. Where your limitation comes in is how much you as the employer can actually put in. It's 25% of your income, right? So if you made $10,000, you could put 23 grand into that, into the solo 401k as the individual, but you could only put 2,500 into it as the employer, right? So that's salary based, or how much money you actually had made. So let me stop before I go any deeper on this, because I'm seeing some question marks in the eyeballs. Go ahead and ask them. Let's get through this. That's combined, correct. And that's for the individual. So Rick can also do the same thing. That's just for the individual. So you can have more than one. Now, this is also a pre-tax option for you. So any money that you would put into this, both as you as the individual and then as you as the company, all of that is a tax deduction, right? So we're back to $1.25 made is $1.25 earned. Now, one of the things that I like about the solo 401k, and this is what I just set up for myself this for 2024, is that it has a Roth option. Okay, so I'll talk to you a little bit more in a moment about what the Roth is, but it has a Roth option, which is really cool. So the first few years that I've been operating independent, so I don't have the real estate team, right? So I don't have any employees. The first year of doing this, or the first 3 years, I've been doing it as a pre-tax, right? So now as I transition out of doing the high performance coaching, et cetera, I'm going to now move from doing a pre-tax contribution to doing a Roth contribution, right? It took me 10 minutes to set this up today through Vanguard. So this is part of the challenge that we have, is we don't know how to do all of these things. Like, how do we set this stuff up? How many of you guys currently use like Vanguard, for instance? So we have a couple of people in here. With Vanguard, one of the things that I've learned is you can pick up the phone and call them, and you're going to learn more from them in a 10 or 15-minute conversation than you're going to learn from your financial advisor over 15 years. I had a financial advisor 15 years, met with them twice a year. No disrespect, it was better than not having one because it caused me to do some of the right things when I needed to be doing them. However, I didn't learn anything. In 15 minutes of having a conversation with Vanguard, I was like, oh my God, there's so much that I just learned in a 15-minute conversation. Here's the cool thing. With Vanguard, or I'm guessing Schwab or Fidelity or some of these, brokerage houses, they have services. You just pick up the phone and call them, and they'll tell you the thing, like the how-to. So the very first time I set up a solo 401k, I'm like a deer in headlights. I'm like, what do I do? How do I do this? And I'm like, I'll just call Vanguard. Hey, how do I do this? Oh yeah, here's what you do. And they walked me through how to set it up while I was on the phone with them. So I was on the computer. Okay, go here, click here, set that up. Now, are you this kind of event? Okay, great. Go here, click here. Do you know the funds that you're going to want? Okay, great. Go here, click here. Right? So, the first time I set it up, it might have taken me 20 minutes. I didn't need help this time. Actually, I did. I had to call them up because I'm like, hey, can I do, even though I have this solo 401k that's a pre-tax account, I know that solo 401ks you can do in a Roth version. Like, can I have my cake and eat it too? Can I have both? Can I stop contributing to one and just open up another one? They're like, yep. I'll send you the form. You click here, make sure you go down to the bottom of the form, click that, and you'll be all set. 10 minutes, I had a form, it's all done. So the thing is with the financial advisor, sometimes they speak a different language and it sounds very scary, you know? I'm just saying, you don't have to feel that way. You can always pick up the phone, make a phone call to these people, and they'll actually walk you through it. So I'll talk to you a little bit more about that Roth IRA, but I've got a whole thing on here about that. So remember, solo 401k, no employees unless that person is your spouse. All right, cool. Next, this is my favorite one of them all, but I'm going to talk about that one in a second. That's the HSA. The Roth IRA. The Roth IRA is an IRA where you put after-tax money in it. So if you made $1.25, you can only put $1 in because you got taxed on it. But what's the advantage of a Roth IRA? Well, the advantage of a Roth IRA is that it grows tax-free. And then when you pull it out, it's tax-free. And let me throw a third advantage in this for those of you who are aging like moi. No required minimum distributions. That word is not going to mean a lot to you today. But I promise you, when you're like 65 and 70 years old, all of a sudden you're going to go, oh shit, I have RMDs that I have to think about. And that can really mess things up because had you not planned properly, you might find yourself in a tax bracket that you were not expecting. All right. So with the pre-tax money, the stuff we get tax write-offs on, you get the tax write-off up front, it grows tax-free. But when you pull it out, whatever your tax rate is at the time that you're retired, it will get taxed at that rate when you pull it out. The Roth is different. You're taxed up front on it, but now it grows tax-free and you get to pull it out tax-free. Big advantage, right? So there are a couple of, those are the big advantage. There's a couple of downsides on it. I think one of them is the maximum contribution. So for those of you guys who are making a lot of money, you might not even qualify to put money into a Roth, right? So if you're single and your income exceeds 153 grand, you can't even put money into a Roth. Well, yeah, you can. You can put it into a Roth through your solo 401k. Yeah, you can do that. Did you know that? Now you do, right? So yeah, you can skirt that if you have a solo 401k and you make more money. You can just put it in to a solo 401k that's a Roth solo 401k. Justin. I was going to bring it up in a second because it's valuable to know, although it's complicated to comprehend, you know? Yeah, please. Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, I should have had you on the microphone on that next time because that's stuff that they couldn't hear it. But what Justin had just said is that you can do what's called a Roth conversion. So you can take your SEP IRA or your solo 401k that was all pre-tax, and you can convert as much or as little of it as you would want in any given year. When you convert it, you're going to be paying tax on it at whatever your tax rate is for this year. One of the things that you have to be careful about is there's a big jump between the 24% tax bracket and what is it, the 30% tax bracket? That's a big jump. You wouldn't want to convert so much of it that it pushed you into a 30% tax bracket. So this is going down the rabbit hole, you guys. But there is a way down the road that you can convert a traditional IRA, pay your tax on it, whatever you converted, you pay your tax on it then that year. But now it sits into a Roth IRA where it will grow tax-free for the rest of whenever. And when you do pull it out, you get to pull it out tax-free. And remember that third benefit, which isn't affecting any of you guys right now, and it will affect hopefully all of you. And that's something called RMDs. They can really mess you up. The RMDs, the requirement minimum distribution on a pre-tax account, the federal government wants to make some taxes on that, right? That's why they require that you pull it out. because they don't want you to die and it go to an estate and then they never collected their taxes on it. Does that make sense? All right. So enough of that rabbit hole. If you're married, if you make over 228,000, you can't use the traditional Roth IRA, but you can use the solo 401k Roth version. So that's why I wanted to bring that up. The other thing is if you look at one of the downsides, you can only, I say only, this is a lot of money, right? You can only put $7,000 into it in a year if you qualify. Now, if you're old like me, you can put an extra grand in there, and that's great. Or I can say, well, nah, I don't even want like 8,000. I could go right back over to my solo 401k, and I could put in what this year up to 69,000 all into the Roth version if that's what I want to do. So you guys have some options. I know that's a little bit confusing. It'll be hard to remember all of these things, but I have good news for you. I'll send you all the slides on this. So you guys, I know some of you guys are taking pictures, that's fine too, but I will send out the slide deck for you so you have that so you can remember it, right? Because when I get to the knowledge and resources, like where do I learn, what do I listen to, what do I read, I put it all in there for you so you guys can do the same thing if you choose to do it, all right? So let's move on to the HSA. It is my absolute favorite savings vehicle. And the HSA stands for a health savings account. Raise a hand, anybody in here besides me have an HSA? Good, so there's a good number of us that have an HSA. I love that. Now, the first time I had an HSA, I had no idea how to use it. And my health insurance provider didn't tell me how to use it. So in my mind, I was like, oh, so I just like put money in this account and then I use this HSA debit card, and anytime I have like a medical expense, I just swipe that and then it just comes. Yeah, that's how it works. Cool. All right. So that's what I did for the first, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 lost years of having an HSA. Now I'm going to tell you what an HSA is, and I'm going to tell you how to do it right. Okay, so an HSA is basically a high deductible health insurance plan. High deductible means it's not for everybody. If you have underlying health issues and you go to a doctor a lot, the HSA is not a good plan for you, okay? But if you're healthy and, you know, really the only time you probably need, you know, medical stuff would be kind of an emergency, you know, then the HSA is right for you. All right, I mean, you probably had to use it this year or last year, right? But before that, you probably hadn't had to use much of an HSA, health insurance is my guess, right? So yeah, this is what I want to get into. So first of all, if we look at what we can put into an HSA in 2023, well, actually, I'll just talk about the 2024 numbers since we're there now. If you're single and you don't have a family plan, you can put up to $4,150 into this thing called an HSA account, which I will explain a little bit more. If you're on a family plan or if you're just married, right? So I've got a spouse. And so we can now put in $8,300 this year. I've already done that. I've already, you know, I do that at the very beginning of the year, always. That's a tax write-off. Okay, so you get to deduct that contribution against your income. So now we're back to $1.25 earned is $1.25 saved. But here's the beauty of that. That grows tax-free. And when you pull it out, you can pull it out for qualified medical expenses tax-free. Okay. So I knew kind of all of that stuff to some degree when I got my first HSA. I knew I was getting a tax deduction. But this thing called grow tax-free, it's like, what do you mean grow tax-free? Well, quite simply, my HSA is held in an account that's managed by a company called Health Equity, right? Some people will have it through like their own Roth IRA. You can actually, or Roth IRA, self-directed IRA, my bad. You can actually have your HSA account managed by yourself through a self-directed IRA. That's good stuff. The idea is that my money is sitting in different index funds under Health Equity, right? I pay a very small fee monthly to Health Equity for them to they don't do anything for me other than hold the money, administer it. It's $10 a month, not a big deal, right? Now, the idea is I'll contribute that every single year, and I don't want to touch it. That's what Justin was saying. You don't want to use it. So every time I have a medical related expense, if I can afford to pay that expense out of pocket, which I have been able to, I just pay the expense out of pocket. I hold on to the receipt, right? Take a picture of it or hold on to it. And I put that into my Google Drive, right? So if you go into my Google Drive, it'll have like medical receipts, 2017, 2018, 2019, you get the picture, right? So I've got one created for 2024. I haven't dropped anything into it yet, but it's coming, I'm sure. At any point in time, 20 years from now, 2 months from now, tomorrow, I can start turning these receipts in to health equity, and I get in return tax-free cash. So the money that's sitting in health equity, what do you think it's doing? It's been an index fund since, this time around, since 2017. Growing, right? I mean, how much is the market up today versus where it was in 2017, roughly? Yeah, almost 100%. My money's almost doubled in that account by not using that money. I get the tax write-off. It grows tax-free. I can still use it. By the way, when I get older, I can use it for my Medicaid, Medicare, premiums, right? Or I can just start turning in all these receipts that I've been saving throughout all of the years and just get cash. So the whole point is you don't really want to use the money that's sitting in the HSA. You want to let it grow. You just have to be smart about having a filing system. Sometimes, my wife just will hand me receipts for, prescriptions, or aspirin. It's qualified, right? There are a lot of things that are qualified. Massages, qualified. There's a bunch of things that are qualified. Acupuncture, mental health therapy, if you guys do that, like these are all qualified medical expenses. You just take a picture of it and then you upload it into your Google Drive, give it a name, give it a date, and give it an amount. And then one day when you grow up, you can start cashing in on all of those things. You already have the receipts. You just turn it in for cash. You have the receipts. What's that? To take them, well, yeah, there is no expiration. Zero. No expiration. Good. I'm glad that we're getting some questions. Let's go to you, and then we'll go to you. Okay. No, that's not necessarily true. So there's a couple of other ways. Now, this is where I'm not a health insurance provider. I'm not the expert on this. This is where I call health equity and be like, hey, so how can I pull the money out of that? But I can give you a couple of just easy rules. First of all, you can have the part of it sitting as like a cash account in there, or you can transfer some of the holdings into a cash account in there. And then you use like a debit card, and then you can swipe your debit card, and then it'll just pull money out of the account using your debit card, right? For other health things, right? But then if you're like, oh my gosh, I had an emergency that isn't health related, I don't have enough of the receipts, but I've got this money sitting there. Yeah, you can pull that money out. You're just going to pay taxes on the money that you pull out. That's okay. You had a question back there, sir? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the question is, do we worry about the policy changing to where at some point you might not be able to pull the money out? No, that's not going to happen. They could make that rule saying, moving forward, you only have 5 years to cash in. However, they'll never be able to take away what they already said that they're giving you. 100%. Yeah. And my guess is HSA will be here in perpetuity. Again, the government wants you to be able to fund your own insurance. They don't want to have to be relied upon as insurance providers. You understand? And so they're just saying, hey, let's figure out a way that we can reward people for having a health savings account. So we're going to give them a tax write-off up front. And by the way, let them invest that money, so it can grow. By the way, if it's health related, let them pull that money out whenever they want to, no matter when, tax-free. Right? So it's just, it makes sense for them to do it this way. Yeah, Sean? I'm going to give this to you. Yeah. And we'll just keep these one on each side if you don't mind. That guy.
And maybe you don't know this because I don't want to throw you on the spot, but I thought when you were 59 and a half, you could start treating that as just a regular savings account, therefore avoiding needed.
Like a retirement account?
Well, yeah, there was something about that where you an HSA can basically convert to a traditional, or it converts in the way it's treated to a traditional savings account. So you, like any other savings account. Do you know anything about that?
Not enough to get into, probably about as much as you. I've heard plenty of stuff on it, but in terms of what's actually real, I don't know. That I couldn't answer on. So good question though. Yeah. Hey, Sean. Thank you, brother.
If you die, you passed on to your heirs.
What do you mean if you
when you die?
die? Right. Yeah, we're going there,
Live-
buddy.
Living forever. When you die, if there's money still in that account, is it just death tax? I mean,
Honestly,
how's
I
it
don't know.
pass on
I
to
mean,
heirs?
you do elect beneficiaries for the account. So for instance, my HSA account's beneficiary is my trust. And so it's all spelled out in the trust. And so I can't say specifically how the HSA would work. I do know how my trust essentially would work and any of the taxes that would be liable on that. So, as with any of your retirement accounts, your solo 401k or your SEPs, you should have beneficiaries that are listed on there. And then all of you guys, and we wouldn't talk about this today, but really all of you guys in this room, regardless of your age, young ladies, you should have a trust. You should. A trust is a lot better than a will. Trust me. All right, cool. And that's a good question. I just don't know exactly how that works. All right, so any other questions on the Roth or the HSA? So do you understand the concept of it is hold on to the receipts? Don't turn them in if you don't have to, because nobody taught me that. And nobody taught me that I could put that money in health equity and go and pick my own funds, which, I've just picked a bunch of different Vanguard funds that are like small cap, mid cap, large cap. It's like owning a slice of the entire publicly traded market. And cumulatively since 2017, it's grown almost 100%, which means it's almost doubled in 6 years. Okay, great.
If my husband would be able to in the HSA.
Oh yeah, yeah. So my wife doesn't contribute anything, for instance, towards the HSA plan, but we're both on it. Yeah, absolutely, and that's great because then I'm able to contribute. This year it's $8,300 that I was able to contribute this year, right? So that's a great question. Yeah. Cool.
Through my employer, Allstate insurance. So
Yeah, so you have the ability to do a family contribution. So this year, cumulatively, you could put 8,300 in there. Go ahead.
yes.
Yeah.
We have.
Could he open up his own HSA account?
Yes.
There would be no advantage at all to doing that because you wouldn't both be able to contribute the $8,300. That's the only reason in your mind is like, hey, can you do 8,300? No, because then you would be considered individual, right? And here's the idea. So there's my wife and I are the only two people that are on the HSA plan right now. We've got a bronze University of Utah plan. So it's, down the rung. That's $1,300 a month. I'm pretty sure you wouldn't want to spend $1,300 a month. At the end of the year, that's what, 12,000, that's 15,000 some odd dollars. So it's a losing proposition. I don't know the technical answer to that question. It's a good question, but when you do the numbers, even if I didn't know if you could actually do that, it wouldn't make sense financially to do it. All right, any other questions on the HSA? Is that good stuff for you guys to know? Like, how is it that I pay to have a health insurance provider that convinces me I should get an HSA that then teaches me nothing about how to actually use an HSA? Did you guys know how to do this? Like, have you heard of like holding on to your receipts? No. Like nobody even said that. You're just like, well, I put the money in and I put the credit card in and it just takes the money out. And then, yeah, that's how it works. It's like, well, that's dumb, isn't it? It's like, it's so much smarter to put the money in and not use it if you don't have to, and let that money grow for you. So speaking of growth, we're going to learn some kind of rules of finance here, things that I didn't know. I'm going to skip this. You guys can visit this on your own. I'm sure I've got something in here before that, but maybe I just put that slide out of place. Hold on a second, guys, because these slides. Yeah, I moved my slides around on myself, I guess. Okay, that's cool. At least I know this now. Let's talk a little bit. We'll come back to this rule of 72 and a couple of these other things that are really mind-boggling. But the first thing I want to know is, like, do any of you guys in here have like quarterly meetings with your CPAs that are kind of preset? We have 1, 2. That's I already know 3. That was a big mistake that I was making, early on in my real estate career, is not meeting with a CPA on a regular basis, like just having a quarterly meeting. So what do you think happened when I got to my CPA at the end of the year? I dry cried. I just dry cried. You know what dry crying is? It's where a grown ass man bawls inside. There's just, you can't see the tears running on the outside, but they're running. Trust me. Like I remember one time my CPA, this is the last time I made the mistake, told me what I owed. And I said, you realize that's my daughter's college education that I need to write a check out for right now. Literally. Right. And so what did I need to do differently? I needed to set something up on a quarterly basis to ensure that I never suffered such a large number. It's like being stabbed, I mean, I haven't been stabbed. Has anybody been stabbed? Nobody? I just want to know if it feels like what I'm saying it feels like, I'm glad that you haven't. That's good. That's good. Anyway, my recommendation is that do you all know, like, if you're running LLC, you have quarterly taxes that are due? Okay, some people don't know that. I certainly did not know that because I hired people that were supposed to tell me these things that didn't really. They just thought that merely by me hiring them that I've downloaded all of the information that they have, right? Yeah, they didn't. I didn't know. So I set up quarterlies, right? I would go meet with my accountant once a quarter. Initially, I stopped having to do that after a period of time because I set myself up to know, here's what I'm going to have to pay quarterly taxes. If you're self-employed, you're paying your own state unemployment taxes, federal unemployment taxes, aka SUDA, FUTA, Social Security. Do you guys know all of this, right? You have to log into this online portal and you got to pay these things. Are you doing that quarterly? Okay, because if you're not doing it quarterly, you are setting yourself up for 2 things. Number 1, an increased likelihood of being audited, and number 2, tax penalties, right? Who here loves tax penalties? Really? Nobody? Thanks, Rick said it's like being stabbed in the eye. Has anybody in the room been stabbed in the eye? Okay, nobody. All right. We can't verify that then. All right. So this is just like a thing. I remember last year when I did this class, I said, okay, everybody stop, pull out your phone. So let's just do that for just a second. Just play with me, you guys. Thank me later. Play with me now. All right. So January, February, March is the first quarter. Your taxes are due the 15 days after the end of the first quarter. So go ahead and put a reminder in for the first Monday of April. Make it a recurring reminder. Quarterly tax appointment. Just go ahead and do it. I'll wait. For real. Quarterly tax appointment. Make it recurring first Monday of every April. Should be plenty enough time. Okay, I'm not going to get ahead, so everybody has to get done before I move forward. We have more fun things to talk about, so get after it. Let's go. Set these up. Quarterly, April 1st, first Monday of April, whatever. Recurring appointment, quarterly tax. And if you want to make this easy for the next appointment in your schedule, go ahead and copy and paste the title of that appointment. And let's apply that to the first Monday of July. Go ahead, first Monday of July, quarterly tax reminder. Okay, quarterly tax reminder. Make it recurring for the first Monday of July forever. Just make it easy. You do this one time in this class, you'll never have to do this again unless you change calendars. Right? It's boring to do this right now, but what I'm helping you guys do is save money for the rest of your life. And dry crying. Anybody have young kids in here? You don't want to track crack. You don't want to get that year-end tax bill and be like, what? Okay. Feels like being stabbed. Yep. Can't verify that. All right. And guess what? Copy that. What's the next one? October 1, first Monday of October. Okay. First Monday of October. Put it in there. The last one's going to be a little trickier, so don't get ahead of yourself and put that last one in yet. This is the third quarter, right? First Monday of October, recurring appointment, quarterly tax. That's why you all came to this class. How to use Google Calendar or whatever calendar that you guys use. Okay, and then here's what I would like you to do for the last one. The last one, I do a year-end estimate. It's, you know, it takes a little bit more time, and it's kind of final numbers and how much dividend, you know, am I going to receive, how much in payroll taxes I'm going to make based upon what I'm projected to bring through the end of the year. Usually you're going to have a pretty good idea of what your expenses are going to be. Oh, hold on a second. Do any of you guys keep your books monthly? Okay, four of you. All right, 5. Yeah, open and close your books monthly, even if you're just using a spreadsheet, all your income and all of your expenses just in one spreadsheet. If you spend an hour once a month, you'll stay caught up on that. That's really great. Your CPAs love it when you can just say, here's everything, and then be like, good, so here's what you need to do, right? But the last appointment of the year, I would probably put a reminder in for the second Monday of December to set that up. Because that'll be an actual year-end estimate. So if you made more than you thought you were making, or if you made less than you thought you were making, this is the time that you can make all of that up and penalty proof yourself. That's the whole point, is penalty proof yourself. My brother's not here to defend himself, so this is why I can say this. I remember he was telling me, he was self-employed long-haul truck driver, and he was telling me, you know, eventually the IRS will forget. I know, that's what I did too. That's like, wow. Obviously, you're not in the real estate business, because anybody that's been in the real estate business for a long time knows the IRS doesn't forget. Yeah. They don't forget anything, nothing. Here's what happens. The penalties get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. The audits get more frequent. Don't screw this up, you guys. If you're responsible and you're getting everything done on time, it also lessens the odds that you're going to be liable for a tax audit. They're not looking at you. You're not a problem child. You know, you're middle America, I hope. Maybe you're at the upper, maybe you're at the upper 1%. I don't know, whatever it is, they're probably not going to look at you if you're doing those things. Okay, so enough on that. One of the things that I wanted to also talk to you about are high yield accounts. And so here's the thing that I don't know why the automation isn't in here. My whole thing's out of whack right now. I'll try to get it put back into a proper order when I send it out to you guys. No big deal, because all the content's there. Just how I talk about it is different. And you don't know, because other than a couple of you guys, you've never seen me talk about this. Am I right? So you don't even have it included. Perfect. I love it. So high yield accounts. I'd mentioned this earlier. Now, I always kept my money in my business banking account. That was smart, right? And just kept money in a business banking account. How much interest does a business banking account earn on average? It's like 0.00 and some more zeros, I think. A lot of nothing. You know how many years I kept money in a business account earning nothing? And I thought that was the smart thing to do. Why? Because I got this reserve account. I'm totally protected. If something happens, business fails, whatever it is, I'm solid, man. I'm good. I'm super smart, but I'm not. You know why? Because I didn't have smart people telling me, like, why would you leave that money sitting in a business account when you can put it in a high yield account? I'm like, what the hell is a high yield account? I've never heard of it. High yield account is an FDIC insured bank account that earns interest, currently around 4.3, 4.5. There are some high yield accounts earning as much as 5% interest, right? So if you're dumb like me, you could do the math. It's not as simple as, it's not super simple math. But if you're dumb like me, let's say you have $100,000 sitting in a reserve account, earning 0% interest. I'm losing $5,000 a year for 15 years. How much is that? 75 grand. $75,000 of money I didn't make because it was sitting in there, but it's worse than that. What if I were to deploy that money and put it into something like a high yield account? Now all of a sudden I'm earning money where I was losing money before. But here's where I really got kicked in the scrotum. Sorry if that's too graphic. Is when I learned that inflation erodes the value of your dollar. Okay, so we talked about this in 2022. Inflation was roughly 9%. So if you had $100,000 sitting in a 0% bank account, what did that cost you at the end of the year? It cost you $9K. Now, multiply that by 15 years, right? Not that the inflation rate was that high over 15 years, but you realize I was just losing money on money that I thought I was being smart with because nobody told me that there's such a thing as a high yield FDIC insured account. FDIC insured accounts are insured up to $250,000. If you make a lot of money and you want more money protected in a high yield account, you know what you can do? You can go and open up another high yield account through a different institution that is insured up to $250,000. These things operate like bank accounts. They're FDIC insured. I've got one through American Express. I've got one through CIT. I've got one through Ally. We'll come back to that one when I get to that. But you can have multiples of these things. And then when you need the money, you just transfer it to your operating account, which is like your local bank account, right? Or your Chase or your Wells Fargo, which earns nearly nothing anyway. You can transfer to there to pay your bills. And typically my transfers have been available within about 24 business hours. Pretty liquid, as long as I'm not, oh my gosh, I'm all of a sudden in a cash emergency, which hopefully none of you guys ever get there. It just takes 24 hours for the money to show up. It's just push a button, money shows up. So high yield accounts, one of the things that you can do, just go to NerdWallet or Google search high yield savings accounts. And you can figure out which the best ones are for you. I'm going to share a few. Oh, I have shared a few of them right here. There they are. These are the ones that I currently have set up. Now, you can't set one up for your business, but remember, your business money is your money, is it not? All right. So you can set it up as you, but just allocate. So anything that's sitting in Barclays is my real estate business. Anything sitting in Morgan Stanley's is my rental property holding account, right? So you can have multiple different holding accounts, right? They're all set up as your Social Security number. You can list your beneficiaries, your wife or your trust or whatever it is. So if something did happen to you, which eventually it will, it'll pass along like it's supposed to pass along. But you can hold your business money in that too. You just can't set it up as an EIN. Okay. Make sense? How many people could open up a high yield account, say in the next week or so? Put $100 in or whatever. Okay, good. This is one of the things that this gal had said that she had taken from the class last time that she was able to execute. It's such a good idea. I've got coaching clients around the country that when I told them about high yield accounts, the hesitancy was definitely there. This is going back a few years now. Seems like when I talk a lot now, it seems like people know what they are, but still a lot of people don't have them. My recommendation, if you're going to set one up and it's your first one, set one up through Ally, A-L-L-Y bank. That's just my personal recommendation. I don't get paid to endorse Ally, but Ally has other products that act like a normal bank that you guys might like. So they offer checking accounts. Pretty cool. If you use an ATM card, does anybody spend cash anymore? I haven't seen cash for a while. I remember it was green. There's a couple of people that spend. Are you guys dealing drugs? Because I'm like, how do you even spend cash anymore? Like, if I were to give cash to somebody and see them actually open up a cash register, I'd be surprised. Everything seems to happen, you just nod like bewitched and stuff happens. It's pretty amazing, right? But if you do, and you use a debit card with like Ally, they refund your debit card fee too. So if, those ATMs, they charge you like $250 or $350 or something, like Ally will do that. The thing I really like about Ally, outside of the fact that they do have a high yield personal savings account, is that they allow this thing called automation. So I've got a slide on automation that I'm sure I'm going to get to. It's just out of order, but I want to talk to you about it right now. Automation to me back in the day was when I went into a physical bank. I know some of you guys, some of the younger people are like, what's that? It's it has like a Zion sign. Sometimes some of they have Mountain America, like Chase, those things, brick glass doors. You know what I'm talking about. Yeah, the paper thing, and you're like, I gotta go give this to somebody, Yeah, that's what I used to do, right? So I used to go into my bank and I would deposit my commission checks. And when I deposited my commission checks, I was smart right out of the gate. And here's what I did. I took 30% of that money and I put it into my household operating account. Okay, got to pay the bills, got to pay for food, just your normal stuff. I took 30% and put it into my household operating account. I put 30% into a tax holding account. Believe it or not, when I started real estate, taxes were actually higher than they are today. Just saying, they can go up. In fact, here's what I'll promise you, taxes are going to go up, right? They're going to have to, because what kind of debt are we in right now? Enormous debt, and somebody's going to have to pay for it. And so I took 30% and I put it into a separate account that was just a tax holding account. All right. I eventually learned to buy CD ladders with that money so it would earn interest. But now you could just do it through Ally and just put it in a high yield, savings account. Just have another bucket that's in the high yield savings account that's earmarked as tax holding money, right? Then I took 20% and I put it into an account called investment. Okay. And then I took 20% and I put it into an account called retirement. So that's 100%, right? 30% household, 30% tax holding, 20% investment, 20% retirement. Now, remember, investment and retirement were different for me. Retirement accounts were my SEPs or my solo 401ks. Investments, well, that's how I bought all the real estate that I own today, is because every single freaking time I went to the bank, I put 20% of whatever I was putting into the bank into a separate account. The reason why I like Ally is because you can actually set that up with Ally right out of the gate. It's truly automated. Mine was not automated. Theirs is truly automated. And then if you're really smart, and let's say you got a Schwab account or a Vanguard SEP or a 401k, and every time you put money in, you just tell Vanguard, take X amount of dollars from that account once a month and put it into this fund. And it does it. And that's automation, right? It takes, anytime you can take your brain out of investment decisions, that's a good decision. Anytime you try to put your brain into making investment decisions, that's a bad decision. I know it sounds crazy. I'm talking about retirement. I'm talking about the stock market primarily. I'm not talking about real estate. You got to think about that, right? I told you today we wouldn't be talking about investing in real estate. But your brain is the thing that gets in the way. What is it that we do? Do you realize inflation begets inflation? Do you realize that in the United States of America, it is absolutely proven, this is around the world, it's a human thing, it's absolutely proven that if enough people think inflation's going to go up, what happens? It goes up. Okay, so here's the other thing when we put our mind to it, right? We are like, nah, the market's coming down. I'm not going to buy any stocks right now. I'm just going to wait for it to hit the bottom, right? What is it that Warren Buffett says? Get greedy when others are fearful and be fearful when others are greedy. How's Bitcoin right now? It's gone way up, right? Anybody follow cryptocurrency at all? I'm not an expert on it, so I don't want to pretend to be, but it's gone like way, way up. So what do you think's happening? Do you see how many articles are now being written about crypto? ETFs are coming. It's like taking over the news landscape for anybody that like follows the news. Am I right? It kind of is. So what's happening? People are getting greedy, right? That's when you should be fearful. And you should be greedy when everybody else is running. So I set up rules. This is just how my brain works. I have to bulletproof myself for myself because I will let myself down 100% of the time. If I have to make financial decisions around investments, I will lose. It's just, I'm human too, right? I'm like, crypto's, oh man, I'm missing out. I need to buy some right now. I did do that. I had a friend talk me into it. Tiny itty bitty amount. And you know what happened? Everybody was buying. This is when crypto or when Bitcoin was like 60 something thousand bucks. was like, all right, I'll get some, because he's like, for 2 years trying to tell me to get some. Anyway, how do you think I did on that? I was buying when everybody else was buying. I was taking advice from the wrong guy. I love the guy, but not the right guy for getting advice. And so I just created rules. You know, if the market goes down by 5%, I put X amount of my holdings in. If the market goes down by 10%, I put X amount of my holdings in. If the market goes down by 15%, I put X of my holdings in every single time, right? That's my rule. If I've got a certain amount that I'm holding for that 20% investment, for instance, if I'm not buying real estate, this is what I can do with it. What do you think happened in, what was it, 2020? Every single rule that I had, the 5%, the 10%, and the 15%, all happened within like 3 weeks, because the stock market crashed. And was it just right? I don't remember what month it was, but you know, the COVID block, yeah, it was like February or March or something like that, right? So I'm like, oh my God, I wasn't like prepared to do that all at once, but that a rule's the rule, right? And so I'm like, rules are rules, you know, bulletproof myself on myself. How do you think I did on that investment? Yeah, best thing I've ever done with my money, next to buying real estate, of course. All right, so I just want you guys to know about this thing called automation. I want you guys to know about this thing called a high yield account. All of you guys can set it up, right? All of you can set it up. It's, yeah, Rick. Yep. I don't know. It depends on who the money market account is. FDIC insured money market account. Most of the banks' money market accounts are at like 2.5% right now, whereas most of the high yields are at 4.5%. If you really want a good money market account that's earning right now just over 5%, you can buy VFMXX through Vanguard. And that's just basically, it's just a money market account that's earning even more than the bank accounts are earning. Is it FDIC insured? No. Not the Vanguard one. Yours might be, but not the Vanguard one. Okay, reserves. I should have talked about this already as part of like the high yield accounts. You guys should all have cash reserves in place. The people that don't have the cash reserves, and like even my daughter, you know, who's very young, going to school, working full time, going to school full time, even she puts $1,000 a year into reserves, right? By the way, I showed her the power of compound interest once, and then we did the math that she put $250 a month away into this Vanguard VTSAX, and it grew at, I forget it, what, like 8.5 or 9%. That when she was 60 years old, that she would have 1.25 million. It's $250 a month. And then you wake up at 60 and it turns into 1.2 million or something like that. Somewhere close to that. We did the math on that. So what do you think she did? She went and opened up a free account through Vanguard and titled it Roth IRA, right? And she's been funding that thing automatically. She just has the money coming out of her account automatically because she gets the automation concept. And if she understands, if she had the money, because I think it's like $75 for every paycheck that she receives, something like that. What if she had the $75, like, how old are you ladies? And younger 20s, I'm guessing, right? Okay, cool. So you're like my daughter's age. What happens when somebody gives you $75? What happens when you have $75 in your purse? Yeah, the money's gone, right? The money's totally gone. So she knew that about herself too, but she was like, oh my God, she couldn't believe that she could be a millionaire, right? Because, you know, when you're young, you just like, you don't think any of these things are going to happen to you, right? Because nobody really teaches you about the aggregation of marginal gains plus time. Did you know that Warren Buffett made 99.7% of his wealth after his like something like 55 or 60th birthday? Why? Because he had been investing since he was 11 years old. So he's a smart guy too, don't get me wrong. But like the market can make us look smart. Just give it enough time. You know, just give it enough time. But in the end, you know, like somebody like my daughter's in school full time and working, and the job that she works, she doesn't make a lot of money. You know, she will put away $1,000 a year into a reserve account. Now, here's what I've learned about my daughter and her reserve account. It ends up being held in my account because she's like, I can't have that money in my account. You know what I'm saying? Like she knows herself. Yeah. Yeah. She left to go to Colombia yesterday. She's in Colombia for like 2 weeks. You know, first time like leaving the, you know, that one. Yeah, that one. I thought that was really cool, you know, and she'd been saving up for a long time. You know how she saved up for that trip? She Venmo'd me every time she got paid. She's like, Dad, will you put this in my little account thing? I'm like, yeah, eventually she'll do it on her own, but I mean, I'm totally happy to help. I know what it's like to bulletproof yourself from yourself because I've been there. I've been broke, right? Most of you guys don't know that my daughter, who I was just referring to, was born in a cabin in a woods with an outhouse without running water in the middle of nowhere in Alaska. I had nothing, zero, nada, right? So I've been there. Like, I know what that's like. I know what it's like. But all of you guys can do this. And here's the other thing too. People that are on the older side, you know, above 40, think like none of this stuff is attainable. I look at my mom as a great example. She didn't start doing any of this until she was 55 years old. I've seen her finances. She's in good shape, right? But she didn't start until 55. She had a nasty divorce, was left with a couple of hoodlums, you know, and all the debt and all the responsibility and all the credit. I mean, like literally buried. Like my dad was not a good ex, you know, just like buried my mom, whatever your problem, not mine, right? So she had to, it took her until she was 55 years old to get unburied. And look at how successful she is, right? Amazing, right? So I want all of you guys to know it doesn't matter the age. It just matters that you start taking some action. That action will aggregate over time. All right. So any of you guys in here know what the rule of 72 is? Just off the top of your head? Kuchar, you can't answer this. I already know you know. Rule of 72 is essentially going to tell you how often your money in the market or in an asset that appreciates will double. So here's an easy way to look at this, right? The Dow Jones since 1975 has averaged 9.235% appreciation per year. So if we simplify that and say, hey, it's just 9%. So here's what we're going to do. We take 72, divide it by 9, and what do you get? Good. It's good. Excellent. You know math still. That's perfect. So it takes 8 years for it to double if you're earning 9%. Rad. This is like the eighth wonder of the world, you guys. It's the magic of compound interest, right? So we talk about Warren Buffett earning most of his money after he's 55, and he started investing when he was 11. And here's why. Because just for simplicity's sake, you can make it $1,000 or you can make it $100,000. In 8 years, what does that mean? That it's going to be worth $200,000 or double what it was when you put it in. But guess what? In 16 years, right? 8 more years past that first date, that doubles again. And so now your 200 is now worth 400,000. And guess what? In 8 more years, that 400,000 doubles to 800,000. And then 8 more years after that, it doubled. $800,000 doubles to 1.6 million. And if you're alive long enough, 1.6 million in 8 years doubles to 3.2 million. So you see, you don't have to be putting a lot of money in. You can, and I don't disagree with you who want to put money into the market, right? Be smart about it. Index funds. It's all about the time on the market. So when I showed my daughter, if she were putting in $250 a month, you know, what that looks like starting at zero at her age, I think she was 22 or 23 when she started doing this, what it would look like when she was 60. And it was like 1.2 million. And she had to then download a different compound calculator to make sure that the first one wasn't lying to her. Because the first one was on Dad's phone. I was like, look, let's do the thing, you know, and it's on Dad's phone. So she went and found her own, you know, compound calculator and did the work. And guess what? It came up the same way. And she's like, I'm like, do you want help setting up a Vanguard account? She said, yeah. And so after a couple of weeks, I'm like, hey, we should sit down and do it. And she's like, Dad, you know, like that was powerful. Like we need to be teaching our kids this stuff because this stuff, nobody even taught this to me. I mean, at the time going through this, I'm one of the most successful real estate agents in Utah. I'm surrounded by, you know, a highly compensated financial advisor, a highly compensated CPA. You know, I'm around super smart people that are teaching me a lot of things. but none of this. Isn't that nuts? Like, nobody taught me this. Nobody's going to teach your kids this, just so you know. So when I send you this presentation, pick a little piece of it for those of you guys who have children and share this with them, especially that little thing about the $250 a month sitting in Vanguard account or whatever other VTSAX or Charles Schwab or whatever you guys invest in, index funds, right? Not individual stocks. I know individual stocks are what a lot of younger folks, kind of focus on because we have this thing called Robinhood. All right, I have Robinhood. Anybody else in here use Robinhood? So we have a handful of folks that are in here using Robinhood. No problem with that, right? It made investing accessible to the younger generation, to all of us for like the first time ever, because you used to have to go through like Ameritrade or your stock person, or I mean, it was, and then it's like, oh, it's complicated, right? So I love it for that. But what you can't get on Robinhood are index funds like VTSAX, which is Vanguard's fund that owns a slice of the entire publicly traded stock market. That's 3,600 companies roughly. That's a pretty safe investment, right? Like one company could go down and you're not going to notice. 10 companies could go down, you're not going to notice. By the way, every time a company comes off the market index, there are more that are coming on. You own a slice of all of it. It's a fairly safe, it's not guaranteed safe, right? Anything can go to zero, but it's a fairly safe investment. The other investment inside of index funds, you guys have heard of like stock versus bond portfolios, right? Bonds are safe, usually, and stocks are risky, but stocks can grow more, whereas bonds, when the market's down, seem to smooth out the ride a little bit, so you don't have so much tumultuousness, right? So if you're going to own any bonds, why not just own a slice of the entire publicly traded bond market? Now, you can find this, I'm sure, through Schwab or through Fidelity. I use Vanguard. Vanguard has one called VVTLX. It's just an index fund that owns a slice of the entire publicly traded bond market. Then I don't need an advisor telling me what to do. So I did this by myself, by the way. I did this on my own before I gently released my financial advisor to move on to his other clients. For 3 years, I was investing myself because I learned how to do this, right? In Vanguard. It's really easy. 2 funds. It was just 2 funds that I would put money in. That's it. VTSAX, VVTLX, 80-20. That's what I was doing at the time, right? That's what my risk tolerance was. 80% stock, 20% bond. And for 3 years, I would sit down biannually with my CP or my financial advisor, and he would share his numbers with me, and I would share what my numbers with him. And it got to the point where he finally said to me, he's like, well, our company does better when the stock market is down. Our company does better when the stock market is down. Well, I remember in 2018, towards the end of it, the stock market went way down. And you guys remember that? I mean, if you were invested heavily, you probably saw it, right? So the stock market had gone way down. And I had started this year-long road trip, but I happened to be coming back through in April. I set up a time to meet with my financial advisor, and I compared my performance versus his performance after the stock market had gone substantially down. And I still outperformed him on average by 14% over that 3-year period. 14%. I read a book, you can write down the title, I'll share it with you at the end anyway. It's called Simple Path to Wealth. It's written by a guy named J.L. Collins. He wrote a stock series. It was a blog that I had read when I started learning about taking control of my own finance. He wrote a stock series that became very famous and now became a book. He wrote the series for his then 21-year-old daughter, trying to teach the 21-year-old daughter, here are the easy ways to make this work for you. So that way, when you get to be my age, you can have a bunch of cash in the bank and be secure for the rest of your life, right? Probably have a legacy to leave. So he did that. It became so popular, it became a book. The book's awesome. It's awesome. I highly recommend it. If it's the only finance book you read, great. Because it'll give you the confidence that, okay, good. So I just go open a Vanguard account and get a couple of these funds and you tell me I'm good to go? Yeah, that's pretty much it. Well, is it more complicated than that? No, yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, because Gary Keller interviewed him. He also, yeah, yeah, J.L. Collins. You can go to his website if you want. J.L. Collins NH for New Hampshire. That's where he lives. Um, and you know, you can go through. I mean, he's a really smart, normal guy, really normal. And if you like books, Audible books, he reads it himself, and he's got this really soothing, kind of grandfathery voice. It just makes you just want to cuddle up with a cup of hot chocolate or something with the guy and have him tell you, you know, old camp stories or something, you know. Anyway, I'm just saying, I didn't know how to do this stuff. This is the guy from reading his stock series, which is now turned into a book, that gave me the confidence to do it myself. And Marita, you've been doing this now yourself. Why? Because you came to this thing, what, 4 years ago or something like that. Didn't we read the book as a like a book club in the Stern team when I was still there? Right? And what did you do? You took action on it. I mean, how easy is it? Yeah, that's how easy it is, right? And I'm sure it's that easy through Fidelity or Schwab or some of these other low fees. And that's really important because the fees are what are going to kill you. So this financial advisor that I have, he was kind of a bigwig, you know, and so bigwigs get paid a lot apparently. 1.5% of all assets under management. Okay. So whatever amount of money I had every single year, I would pay him 1.5% for doing whatever he did or didn't do to my money. If the stock market went down, guess how much I paid him? 1.5%. And when it went up, guess what I paid him? 1.5%, including all of the funds that I had invested in had their own fees, management fees associated with it. Who paid those fees? This guy. So I'm paying those fees anyway, plus I'm paying his fee. Now, if you rule of 72 that could be a lot of money over the course of 30 years, right? Now, I'm not saying me having a financial advisor was a bad thing. It was a good thing because it got me to do things that I wouldn't have done otherwise, right? That's good. Like giving money. I'm in real estate and you want me to put money into stocks? What? That's dumb. Not really. It was pretty smart. Yeah. And it convinced me to do it. The other thing is when I was selling, you know, 100, 200, 300, 400 homes in a year, did I have time to learn this shit? No, I had no time. I couldn't invest any time. So I had to just trust other people and do it. So there's no problem if that's the way you're going to go. If you're going to get a financial advisor, make sure you get a fiduciary. But nowadays, you can get fiduciaries that are like paid for service, like an attorney. Like I can go sit down with a financial advisor for an hour and pay $250 to have fiduciary consultation. Here's what I got. What should I do different? And they'll tell you. Fiduciary means that they can't sell you something that they personally benefit from, right? So my financial advisor wasn't benefiting from saying, hey, I should buy Home Depot. He didn't get paid on that. You know, he got paid 1.5% of whatever I put in there, but he didn't get make a commission on it. So there's nothing wrong with having a financial advisor if you're afraid to do it. But I want you guys to feel more confident than I felt for all those years and learn how to do it yourself. And you can do it very easily. I did it, and I'm not that smart. I'm just smart enough to take action from people that are smarter than me. And so I did. I got a lot of resources, read a lot, got educated a lot, and took action on it. And I'm very conservative. Those of you guys have been around me for a long time know I am one conservative dude when it comes to finances, right? Do you know how many high yield accounts that I have? Like I have way too much money sitting in cash, right? Because I'm so damn conservative. So trust me, I'm conservative. You guys can do this and benefit from it. All right. Rule of 4%. Anybody know what this is? This rule of thumb based upon the Trinity study. It says what? What does it say? Justin, you know what the rule of 4% is by chance? That's the next slide. You can't tell them that yet. Yeah, 4% a year. Okay, so this is a rule of thumb that I didn't know. If you're just putting a bunch of money into the stock market, basically it's saying, look, however much money you have in the market, when you hit retirement age, which is close to 60, right? You'll be able to pull 4% of that out per year and adjust for inflation. And so check me, and adjust for inflation, 4% a year. and not run out of money. The odds of running out of money are very small. It's based off of a very, very in-depth study called the Trinity Report, which I don't have the patience to read. That's good news, right? So what does that mean? It means if I've got $1 million in there, so the young ones, right, they're going to start doing the $250, right? And let's say that's all you ever did was just the 250. I know you guys will do better than that, but if that's all I did, which is the 250, and I wake up at 60 years old, I got 1 point whatever million in there, but let's just call it 1. That means I get passive income of $40,000 a year without the fear of running out of money. Now, I know you guys are going to do better than that, right? So we got $2 million now when you hit 60. What does that mean? How much money can you pull out a year and not have to worry about running out of money? I'll give you a hint. It's double what I just told you. 80 grand. Yeah, 80 grand a year. Like, that's awesome. And you don't have to worry about running out of money. Like, isn't that what we all want to get to when we're older? Is like, I just don't want to have to worry about running out of money. All right. That's it. So that's what the 4% rule is. Justin alluded to the rule of 25, and the rule of 25 is kind of the inverse. It says, hey, how much money do you spend a year? Okay, so let's just imagine that you get to be 60 years old and you spend $100,000 a year, right? So it's just telling you how much money should you have in your retirement account so you can maintain that same lifestyle? 2.5 million. It's the rule of 25. So take your spendings, 100,000 a year. I'm just using easy numbers. You guys are probably like, what, 250,000 a year in spendings? They're like 600, right? The private jet, how much does that cost? All right. Whatever you spend in a year, multiply it by 25, and that's how much money you could have in the stock market and be safe for retirement for the rest of your life. So if you want to spend $100,000 a year, save up 2.5 million. Does that make sense? What I'm saying? Rule of 25. I mean, it's such a simple rule. Nobody taught me that. I wish I would have known it seriously when I was your guys' ages. I found out a lot about these sort of rules of thumbs, if you will, when I was in my 40s, my early 40s. And the thing is I wanted to retire when I was 42. When I was 44, I quote unquote retired. Retirement, remember, is you work because you want to, not because you have to. That's why I'm here right now. I'm not getting paid to do this, but it's just part of my passion project, right? To make sure you guys don't fall victim to the same lack of information I fell victim to. All right. Where was I going with that? Come on, Becky. Lost my train of thought. I mean, yeah. Yeah. The V, T is in Tom, S is in Sam, A is in Apple, X is in X-ray. VTSAX. That's a slice of the entire publicly traded stock market. That particular stock requires an investment up front of $3,000. If you do not have the $3,000, don't panic. Just go to the ETF version of that fund called VTI. VTI. You can buy the smallest amount of that share. There is no minimum contribution requirement other than you have to buy one share. And I can't remember what one share is. It's like $200 or $160 or something like that. You just have to buy it full share amounts, right? The bond one is VB as in bond, T as in Tom, L as in Larry, X as in X-ray, VBTLX. That's the bond. And there is an ETF. So that one, that's also an Admiral Share Bond Fund, which requires a minimum investment of $3,000. But there is, you'd have to Google it because I can't remember the letters. There is an ETF bond fund that it's still the same thing. It's like the VTI, but it's the VTI bonds. Okay, so that's good stuff for you guys to know. All right, the rule of 25. I was going to say I wished I would have known that because when I hit like 44 years old and I started learning more about this stuff, I realized I could have retired 4 years earlier than I did. And those last 4 years of me working were brutal. I mean, it was 60, 70, 80 hours a week, right? I can't get that back. But you guys have the education now that I didn't have. I couldn't plan on those things, you know? Now you guys can. All right. I already talked to you guys a little bit about automation. I talked to you guys about financial advisors, but this is something that I also learned. So when I'm like sitting down with my wife took care of all of the household expenses, everything, right? I was taking care of all the business stuff. She was taking care of all the household stuff. And so when it got down to, okay, like, hey, we're going to pull the trigger and like, I'm going to stop working. All right. What's that going to look like? Well, like, how much do we spend on utilities? Like, how much do we spend on gas, honey? She's like, I don't know, probably like $70 a month or so. Okay. $70 a month. Actually, I'm building out a spreadsheet, right? Which I know you're laughing inside because you're like, you can't build a spreadsheet. You're right. I can't. But I was attempting, and this is true. This is very, very true. And I'm like, okay, well, like, how much do we spend on electricity? And she'd be like, probably like $100. Okay, got it. And I'm like, all right, groceries. What are we spending on groceries a month? She's like, I don't know, like 4 or 5, I don't know, 800, I don't know. And I'm like, okay, we're not sure. And I get to the end of like all of these categories that I created, and I realized all of it was just one big question mark. We didn't know. Now, it's crazy that I ran a business where I could name every single dollar bill. I open my books every month. I close my books every month. I knew 100% of where every penny went. And then I didn't know any of that stuff at the house. I never even taught my wife to do this stuff at the house because I never even thought that I would need to do this stuff. I just didn't think of it. How many of you guys have thought you should be doing this? Good. A few smart people, smarter than me in the room, of course. There always is. Now, I found out about a couple of different programs. I was using this thing called mint.com for a long time. It was free. They just sunsetted and turned into Credit Karma. I believe you can still do this for free with Credit Karma. I chose to show the one that I paid to use. It's $50 a year. It's monarchmoney.com. And let me just tell you kind of what it is. The one on the right is free. I've never used it, but I've heard a lot of people that use it and they like it. And it's free. Gotta love that. I did sign up for it at the same time as I signed up for Mint. I kept Mint because when I signed up for Personal Capital, they saw the money that I put in, and all of a sudden I started receiving a lot of phone calls from Personal Capital. You know, like, hey, we can help you. Hey, we can, man, okay, well, listen, stop calling me. I was like, I didn't know I was going to get hassled. So at some point, you probably, you know, would start getting some phone calls from Personal Capital if you use them. But I'm just saying, it's free. So here's what it does. Both of these things, here's what it does. You put all your bank accounts and attach it there. It's secure. Don't worry about it. You put all of your like credit cards and attach it there. Don't mix your business with your personal. Okay, don't do that. That'll really throw you off. This should just be for personal. You could do one for business too, but this should just be for your personal stuff, right? All of your rental properties that you own with any mortgage balances, put it all in there. It tracks all that stuff for you. It tracks the values of it all the time, right? All your investment accounts, just link them up. If you got Vanguard, if you got Schwab, if you got Fidelity, you just link them up, okay? And your HSA, it links that up too. It links up everything. It'll link up any account that you have. And so what does it do for you automatically? It tracks your expenses, it tracks your income, and it tracks your net worth. Well, this was great. When I started using Mint after about 1.5 years of using Mint, I'm like, okay, well, first of all, the funny story is my wife is like, you are micromanaging my money now. And I'm like, yeah, I get that. I cut because yeah, it probably feels like that. I'm like, what's this? You know, because I'm trying to categorize everything like into proper categories because either one of these you can put stuff. It'll say this expense is like, you know, it's like a Harmon's, but it'll like say it's gas. I'm like, no, it's groceries. So sometimes I'd get expenses and I'm like, I don't know what this is. Do you know what this is? She's like, what are you managing my money? I'm like, no. The point is remember what I said about that rule of 25. If you spend $100,000 a year and you want to spend $100,000 a year in retirement, you need to know how much money you're spending, right? Then you can know what you need to save. We didn't really know what we were spending at the house. We had enough money. That wasn't a problem. But I didn't know where it was going. I just didn't know what the end of the year, what did we spend? You know, and this is back like if you were to log into like Zion's bank, you ain't going to figure it out. I mean, you're going to be like, whoa, you know, I'm not doing it. So I used this and it tracked all of that for me. I probably spent less than an hour a month making sure that the categories were correct. You can do other things with it, like if you want a budget, that wasn't my goal, but if you want a budget, you can set up budget goals in it, and then it'll alert you. It's also really cool because like if you do review it, it'll tell you what your subscriptions are, because you guys lose track of all your subscriptions. You're like, hey, just so you know, next month you got this thing called Amazon subscription that you're going to get charged for. And you're like, damn, I'm still paying for Amazon. I moved to Walmart, whatever. It'll tell you all of those things. And so there's some there are some really good tools that are useful that's in it. But the bottom line is I wasn't doing it to try to figure out like how to budget the money. I was just doing it saying, hey, if we spend this much, whatever the amount is that we spend a year, I don't want to have to worry about spending less than that. So what is the number? And like I said, this is the true story. By the time I put all of this stuff together, all the crap I wished I would have known, I realized that I could have retired 4 years earlier than I did. Do the math on that. That's 3,000 hours times 4. What would you do with an extra 12,000 hours? If you didn't have to worry about money, what would you do with an extra 12,000 hours? You see what I'm saying? That's a big deal. That's a big deal. That's why I recommend that you guys start tracking. It's not about budgeting unless you want to make it about budgeting. It's just about having the awareness of what the hell do I spend? I don't know. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. In fact, Mint was owned by Intuit, which owns Quicken. Yeah. But they gave it away for free and just tried to sell you on, they didn't call you, they just suggested, hey, you should maybe use this credit card, or hey, maybe you should invest in with these guys. That kind of stuff. They didn't make any money on it, so they gave it to Credit Karma. Yeah. And you can, I'm sure you can use it in Credit Karma. I'm not, because I'm like, you know what? It's $50 a year for me to use the Monarch money. And then I don't have to worry about being sold anything. And it won't go anywhere. And it has all the stuff, So, and the other cool thing is it allowed me to import the year's worth of data that I had at that point from Mint. So I didn't lose anything. Right? So it's all done. I highly recommend that you guys pull the trigger and do this. Because otherwise you're going to be like me, where you're starting to go, God, can I retire? Like, when should I do it? Like, how much money am I spending? And you don't know the answer. The other thing is, aren't we taught in real estate to track our net worth monthly? Shouldn't we be doing that? What's our net worth? Right? We're in real estate, which is, by the way, I've commercial fished. I've worked in a metal plating factory. I've cut the head off a fish working in a fish processing plant. Real estate is harder than all three of those, right? So we work our butts off. It's important that you guys track what you're doing, that you automate your money, that you make marginal gains that will aggregate over time that help you make good decisions. It's important to have awareness of what you guys are spending your money on, right? So that way, you can retire 12,000 hours earlier instead of 12,000 hours later. All right, so we've talked about a lot of good stuff there. I'm gonna skip that. This is the thing that I'm gonna, I'll send this out to you. This is just, these are, the books are pretty much in order of what I would recommend reading, right? Psychology of Money. Morgan Housel, you guys familiar with this guy? It's become popular over the last few years. Boy, he just has a great way of explaining money in such a way, especially for those of you who have, at least teenage children and young children, such a great way to understand our relationship with money. God, it's good. And then A Simple Path to Wealth. And if all you did was just read those two things, your money. I've got a lot of blogs that I read. So on Saturday was always my finance day. I would wake up early in the morning just because I would get to the gym early on the weekdays. And I found out when I slept in on the weekends, Monday was like starting all over again, getting to the gym. And so I stopped it and I just got up early every day. It was so much easier on my body just to get up early. No more sleeping in. I can't even sleep in now. I just get up early. So on Saturday, when I get up early, before everybody else got up, I would read 10 pages of a business book and I would go and read a blog. Now, when I am in my car, I am not listening to tunes on the radio. Don't get me wrong, I am a musician. I've been a musician my entire life. I love music. It's my favorite thing, especially making it, collaborating it, performing it. I love that stuff. However, when I'm in my car, I'm listening to podcasts that will help me understand things at a higher level so I can make better decisions moving forward. And the other thing I can do is I can then bring this information to people like you and hopefully make a difference in your life. And hopefully by doing that, you'll do the same thing to somebody else, right? You're just going to keep paying this stuff forward. That's the legacy that you guys will leave. All right, so I wanted to real quick let you know about a wealth building class that's coming up soon. This is Justin Bouchard. Justin is sitting in the back of the room right now. You guys have the card. You guys can reserve to come to this. Now, I did not talk about real estate investing at all, and for good reason, because there isn't anybody who's more poetic or eloquent than Justin is at talking about investing with real estate. I went to your class. Was that last week? Yeah. So I go to his wealth building class last week, right? And here I am. I think I know everything. And I go into that class, and in 30 minutes, I am like picking my jaw up off the floor, humbled, going, "Oh my God, I wished I would have thought about those things that way then." I can't even imagine how many more properties I would own personally if I would have thought like you, Justin. But I think in addition to that, my ability to communicate with other people would have been greatly enhanced. All of my investors that I work with, et cetera. So I want to make sure that you guys know about that. Second thing is I've got a sponsor that's brought a bunch of food in for tonight. Her name is Mandy Henriod. Mandy, not to like, I meant to bring you up here earlier and then I forgot. No, you can come to just register for it. It's on the back. But I want Mandy. I've been in business with now for 12 years, or it's more than a decade, right? She has been a godsend, is an understatement from a lending standpoint. Obviously, she understands you have to earn a relationship. How you earned mine is magnificent. I mean, I had worked with a lot of lenders, but I haven't worked with anybody like you. Mandy's brought in some goodies here, but I'll give her a second to introduce herself.
We can do it all, like literally commercial, construction, HELOCs. We've got all the things. So that's been really fun. It's also helped us pivot in a hard market, help our clients get into more properties. Especially, our first-time home buyers will always be one of my loves and passions. So being able to write a 5-1 ARM in the low fives right now and have them qualify on that is game changer. So, but
That's an FHA loan, 3.5% down, 5-1 ARM means that it's a fixed rate for 5 years at 5 3/8%.
I just locked one tonight at 5.375, giving the client a credit.
Yeah, that's like a public service announcement for your database, just so you know.
So, so we literally, like, we can kind of do everything under the sun. We have a big team. You will see all of us around here at times. And I'm super grateful for that, because that is a skill I learned from my Josh, who is the #1 most influential person in my life and my business. So grateful to be here. Grateful to be in partnership with this human. Let us know. We're always around here.
And there's free food. So I know you realtors, if you're anything like me, we'll be right after that. Yeah.
That does not align with my New Year's goals.
And so I want to introduce one more person to you guys. Some of you guys know this lady. I want to just give you a little backstory on Linda Birch. Linda is our team leader of the Keller Williams Salt Lake City Market Center. Linda was also one of our very first hires within the Keller Williams Salt Lake City Market Center. She's been with us for 15 years. You've exploded your business both on the commercial side, the investment side, and the residential real estate side. You've grown your business. You've been in business. You're respected in the industry at a very high level, right? I think it's just wonderful that you come and participate. You bring so much value, like this class in large part is because of what you're doing for us, right? So I wanted you to just take a minute, introduce yourself, and tell them what you've got cooking.
Well, I mean, thanks for doing the heavy lifting. No, I don't have to introduce myself. I'm Linda Birch. Like Josh said, I'm the team leader here at Keller Williams Salt Lake City. Did you guys find this class valuable? Good. Yeah. I mean, Josh, thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
Just so you all are aware, this is just a small piece of what we provide for our agents. on a monthly basis and ongoing. Our goal is to make sure not only are you selling the amount of real estate that you want to sell, but you're planning ahead for your future, and you will have the ability to retire if you choose to, right? Like that's a convenience that we all should be striving for, is let's work because we want to, not because we have to. And that's a large part of our focus here at the brokerage. So if you're interested in setting up a consultation to build more wealth or build your business up, I would love to meet with you. Nate in the back here is our other team leader here at Keller Williams. He can also meet with you if you'd like. And we would love to just continue to be in business with you and for you to continue joining us for these wonderful classes.
Yeah, you guys, I mean, both of these people run big real estate businesses. Okay, big. And so what she's saying is, I mean, if you look at the back of this, it looks like you've got it here. They're happy to do a free one-to-one sit down with you on your real estate business, if that's what you want. But also, like right now, Linda's got a giant apartment complex that she's developed from the ground up. So this is somebody who also knows at a very high level wealth. She's built it all herself. She comes from the bartending industry, if I'm not, yeah, okay. So right from living in a cabin in the woods in an outhouse, from bartender to two very, very successful, you know, real estate agents, both on the investment side and also just the retail business. Take advantage of what it is that she has to offer to you guys, because she's giving it away for you for free, just like today. All right.
Thank
It's
you
all on the back. Just scan the code.
Yeah.
Eat some grubbins. Get to know each other.
Thank you all for being here.